Well, hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Not Your College Life with Lisa Beals, and I'm your host, Lisa Beals. I am the mom that's there for the mom of the college student whose journey is not at all like your journey was, and you are ready to pull out your hair from all the red tape and the bureaucracy and the it's not us, it's them mentality when you reach out to college offices or staff for help. It shouldn't be this hard. That's where I come in. I'm here to help you navigate that and to keep your sanity. So, this week's episode is how will college be different for fall of 2020 in the year of COVID with no vaccine? So I'm here to talk about that with you. So let's jump right in, shall we? Okay, so I broke the topic up. I broke it up by kind of subtopic. So I hope it makes sense for you. And if I've missed something that you have questions on, please reach out and let me know so that I can add another podcast for a topic that you're dying to find information on. Because let's be real, you guys, the social media posts that I'm seeing out there, the articles that I'm reading, parents and students are starving for answers from universities. What are you doing? What's your plan? What's going to look like? And the universities are scrambling to try to figure this out, right? They've not had the university in this era with a pandemic. So they're figuring out as they go. And there are 1,000,001 different scenarios that they need to try to come up with contingency plans, not including your 1,000,001 scenarios for you and your family. So I'm going to do my best to share kind of some foundation for you guys to get the ball rolling and to help you figure out your own plans. So the first area I want to talk about is the university itself. So many of them, I say so a lot, many of them are anticipating drops in their enrollment. That is for a number of reasons. With the federal immigration ruling that just came out, this is July 8th, the ruling that came out, the guidance for international student visas, that if you are here in the U.S., you cannot take any more than 3 credits of an online course, with so many universities making the decision to be totally online this fall. That is going to be a huge pain point for international enrollment, because those students, if the universities can't pivot and give them a face-to-face schedule, then they're going to have to leave the U.S. And we're a hot spot right now, y'all. And these kids are going to struggle even leaving the country to get a flight home, because no one wants to take someone who's been in the U.S. with our current numbers of COVID. And I'm not going to get into all the politicals, right? That's not my mission here. But our international student population is going to suffer for those that were planning to be in the U.S. to study, and their university has decided to do only online learning. Enrollment will also dip because so many of the students are now dealing with families that have lost their employment because of COVID. Businesses have shut down. People have been laid off or furloughed or fired because no joke, unemployment numbers are crazy with COVID. Students don't have the means to stay enrolled. Many colleges anticipate seeing a dip in enrollment. And it's connected to international students not being able to stay or come to the U.S., and students not financially having the means any longer to pay for college. We will also anticipate a number of students saying, deuces, I did not like the online experiment in the spring. I am not willing to pay for an online class when I signed up for face-to-face. So they're going to take a break and either seek out university somewhere else that's got face-to-face and potentially transfer back in, or they're just going to take a break and maybe work. The feds have also shared that FAFSA numbers are down. It's the FAFSA where students apply to determine eligibility for grants and loans and financial aid. So that's kind of an indicator of what enrollment should look like. When students aren't applying for the FAFSA, that means they don't have intentions of going to school. Additionally, some colleges are laying off staff, not just administrators, but instruction, because of the anticipation of lower numbers. Some colleges have staff and faculty that are walking away because of health concerns. They don't want to be forced into interacting with teens and 20-year-olds who are going to be carriers and, in their words, less respectful of social distancing and wearing face masks and whatever concerns they have. So you're going to see a reduction in staff, both administrative support staff and faculty. It's totally expected. We are seeing a number of universities actually shutting their doors, closing up shop. So there's that. Isn't that scary if you're a senior? I've seen a couple in Indiana in the last 5 years that shut down, and it's devastating to the students, to the alumni. You know, that's your identity. That's your connection to your degree. So that's a little intimidating. I'm saying so again. I do expect community colleges to potentially see an increase in enrollment because of their physical proximity, their opportunity to perhaps have smaller classes and adhere to social distancing. They're mostly commuters, so they don't have the housing issue to deal with and navigate. And it's more affordable and they can stay close to home. So you don't have the higher tuition ticket and there's no housing cost to go along with community college. So I am anticipating an uptick in community college enrollment, and many of them have great transfer articulations for their coursework into the four-year colleges for your student. And then the last change I have already started to see in universities is more partnerships with industry to help backfill where they anticipate losing some students for enrollment. So they're going to look at employment, skill gaps in employment, and working with universities to develop either associate degrees. More times than not, they're looking for a quick, let's say a semester, 2 semesters. On the far reaching end, it's a year and a half, 3 semesters to get some kind of credential. So you're going to see, we call them, quote, professional master's degrees for those employees that already have a bachelor's degree, but they're looking for a little more enhanced skill set. So very customized professional master's degrees that are delivered mostly online, with a few short residential components that are going to be in and out in a year and a half. Some of them are going to be somewhat costly, but many times the employers are willing to pony up the money to close a skill gap. And then there's also undergraduate certificates that are anywhere from 12 to 24 credits that develop a skill in an employee that's very marketable. So cybersecurity or pest control. I mean, it could be any software skill, marketing, tech. It's endless, right? I who knows? Okay, so that's how universities are expecting to change from like a 30,000 foot. I am expecting changes in the student body. So certainly you're going to see more online learners just because, especially in the coastal states, they're pivoting. This is early July. They've already pivoted from their June plan to reopen for face-to-face. They're already saying, nope, never mind. COVID COVID numbers are spiking, bad call, we're going to do remote. So we're anticipating an increase in online learners. And again, going back to the Fed's ruling on international students, if they want a U.S. university education, at this point, many of them are going to end up being online learners, at least for the fall term, potentially for the spring term as well. When you think of housing options and timing to get your visa, and we don't know when we're going to have a vaccine. So if universities are scared for the fall, wasn't it this past spring that we pivoted in March? So I don't know what we think is going to be different for this March. So you either plan for the spike and have your classes already set up to handle it, or you just stick with remote learning for the entire academic year. I don't know that any college can afford to just shut their doors for an entire year and survive. I am anticipating, though, as I mentioned earlier, with new partnerships with corporations, I do envision seeing more employed people that are working and going to school, and displaced workers, people that have been laid off. They're going to retool themselves and go back to school. I got nothing better to do. I can't find work. I'm going to go to school and get a new trade, get a new skill, make myself more employable. I'm expecting campuses not to be as full. So I know for me personally, my day job, I always kicked myself when I waited to go to a meeting across campus. If I waited until 20 after the hour to walk to my meeting, it was going to take me twice as long, because that was when the classes let out, and now there were 40,000 people walking from building A to building B. I hated it. I loved it during the first couple of weeks, and then after that, it was just people, get out of my way, to have to look for that board or that bicyclist that's going to plow you down before you turn. Campuses will certainly be less crowded this year. Plus, not negative, it depends on your perspective. But it will be not full. I did see an article in Inside Higher Ed where several universities, Stanford is one, where they are saying, okay, in the fall, freshmen can come to campus and seniors can come to campus. But that's it. In the spring, we'll let sophomores and seniors come to campus. They're trying to, by dictating which class, they're going to control their numbers. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I didn't mention juniors, but there's a plan in there on by classification who can come. And then the last change I expect to see in students is the student body. The diversity of the student body is going to be different, because not as many international students will be part of the campus experience. And that's unfortunate, but it is what it is, right? It's just the reality of the world we're living in right now. The other diversity piece is socioeconomic status. So those students that come from a more demographically less financially stable bring another flavor of diversity to the campus. And now those students are at greater risk of not being able to come to campus and add their perspectives and their voice to the student body. Okay, then let's moving on to housing. So naturally, social distancing, housing is going to be different. So first of all, move-in. I fully expect move-in to be much more choreographed than it already is. And I think many universities do an amazing job with choreographing move-in to make it streamlined and efficient, and it just flows so well. But now, because you are going to have people from all over the world converging on your campus, how are you going to handle contact tracing? How are you going to limit the risk and exposure to the people that are sticking around, the people that are administrators and support staff? How to protect them? Like it or not, parents, you are going to be stuck with probably only allowing 2 people to join your student to move them in. Now, I have heard all the complaints about siblings, whether they're younger or not, and how am I supposed to find childcare, blah, blah, blah. Or I guess they're going to have to sit in the car. People, what do you do when you go to work with these kids? I get you want them. It's a family event. That's how you want it. But not this year. Not this year. It doesn't make sense to allow unlimited number of people to come into the residence halls and expose all the new students. And then you're going to take that home? Why would... I don't understand it. Please. Be gracious. Be considerate. Put yourselves in their shoes with what they're trying to manage. Just limit it to 2. There's going to be more elbow room. I have seen the sardine cans of days pre-COVID. That's not going to happen now. So they are de-densifying rooms, which means, there's not going to be triples or quads. There's going to be a lot more singles and doubles. And I've seen posts about, well, as my student, what if they don't get 6 feet apart? This is your student's home away from home. So in their dorm room, I'm not going to anticipate social distancing in your dorm room. Now, your students may have a isolation or quarantine period with each other, but their roommate is going to become their family away from home. Just like you don't wear a mask inside your own home, you don't social distance with your family members inside your own home. I do not expect your students to social distance or wear their mask in the same room with their roommates. Housing, I fully expect if there is a common shower for a hall, there will be assigned times just to mitigate congregating of numbers. So students are going to need to plan accordingly, that if they choose to sleep in, then they're running the risk of not getting their shower time. Students will most likely have dine and go. There's going to be no buffet style dining in this season of COVID. So it's going to be, some places might allow you to place your order ahead of time so that if you have a health restriction, then your student can place that order ahead of time and have that ready to pick up. I know at my university, they are presumably, I have not heard this for certain, they are presumably going to limit the number of seats and how the tables are laid out in the dining halls. And in addition, I do know this is for certain, they are adding tents around campus near the residence and dining halls so that once you pick up your food, you don't have to take it for a 15-minute walk before you can sit down somewhere and safely social distance and eat, or sit with your roommate and eat. So they're already planning to put up some tents around for dining options. I've heard of several universities that are using the tent option for instruction as well, but we're getting on to that. And then lastly, for housing, I fully expect students to be requested to have, like moms, we've had our little bags packed for you're pregnant and you've got your hospital bag, your overnight bag packed for when time comes for baby. Your student probably should have a to-go pack that's accessible in the event they're asked to do an isolation because of an exposure risk or because they are showing symptoms and now they need to quarantine. So we can talk later if you need help about what should go in a to-go pack, what should be in that. Maybe I'll do a little mini episode on what should be included in your to-go pack. And honestly, the chances of an isolation or a quarantine significantly disrupting your student should not be really great unless they do truly get ill, right? What we're seeing, not all, don't send me hate mail. Not all young people are escaping with little to no symptoms. Some are being profoundly affected. I know my 23-year-old was diagnosed and working in a nursing home. We knew it was not if, but when she was going to get it. And we were really, knock on wood, we were really fortunate because she's an asthma and allergy sufferer. And this being a predominantly respiratory illness, I was very worried about her. And she was very surprised to get a positive test, dealing with predominantly what she thought was a sinus infection. She went in to get treatment for that, and just as it would be remiss if we didn't go ahead and test you since we know you're working in a nursing home, and it did come back positive. She did her 14-day quarantine and really suffered no symptoms. So I was very blessed with that. So anyway, that's not to say, going back to, I digress. Your to-go pack should be packed and ready to go for your student. And again, plan for the worst, hope for the best. In most cases, the to-go pack and the isolation quarantine should not have a significant impact on your student's academic life. Okay, moving on to classes. How will classes look different this fall? Depending on where your student is going, many classes will have the format changed. So we're still going to see some face-to-face, especially when you're talking about labs or flights or clinicals. You know, I don't want a doctor in training or a nurse in training to do all their work virtually. You're going to have to do this, right? So there will still be some face-to-face classes, which is great. But your students need to be prepared for that and know that the class sizes will be smaller. They should expect to potentially clean their own workspace before they sit down, before they get to work, and then to clean it again when they're done. That's going to be, by the end of the academic year, your student might come home a little more tidy. A bit more of a clean freak when they come home after spending an entire semester knowing and expected to clean their workspace before and after they're done working. So that might be a little silver lining for you. Many universities are also building in a little more passing time between classes because of the need to manage directional space usage. So you've seen by now, certainly you've seen many stores are saying this is an entrance only, this is an exit only, one-way hallways, following the signs on the floor. Bathrooms are going to be less dense. So sorry ladies, that $10 is now probably a $5. So where we're waiting already for 10 seats, now we're going to wait twice as long for 5. So universities intentionally built more passing time in between classes for those kind of things. I expect students to do more walking, more biking, more skateboarding between classes, and hopefully, maybe not, but not as great a dependency on the bus system, because those buses, they're little petri dishes, aren't they? So if possible, encourage your student to get a bike, a board, or to walk between housing and main campus, between classes, and limit the use of the buses or other public transit that are like buses as much as possible. Meetings and campus resources, in most cases, are going to be by appointment only. So your students' ability to plan ahead is going to need to be sharpened. Advising, financial aid, registrar, career services, tutoring, they should plan on making appointments and not, there may be an opportunity for drop-in, But your student's going to be better served to say, let me call and make an appointment. Even if it's for an hour from now, plan on making appointments. And then, of course, they should expect more hybrid courses where they are in small groups for some more hands-on, more engaged interaction with their faculty, with their lectures being asynchronously offered. So it's a lecture recording so that no matter what time zone you're in, you will be able to engage in the lecture. There's a new, I don't know if it's new, but there's a new to me model called HyFlex, where I'm going to be part of a class of 300 students, and I have a lecture 3 days a week. But only 1/3 of the students will come to the lecture on Monday, another third will come to the lecture on Wednesday, and the last third will come to the lecture on Friday. And the days that you're not physically present in the lecture, it will be live streamed, and you will just sit from wherever you choose and watch the live stream from wherever you are. And that way you're all hearing the same lecture. You get the bonus of it's going to be recorded, so you can replay that if you need to re-listen again and take notes again, double check your notes. So I think, honestly, I think that's a potential for universities that were struggling, being landlocked or financially strapped to build larger classrooms. I see this being a potentially permanent solution to many issues there. Now, from a faculty perspective, that's intimidating to me to think I'm going to double and triple my enrollment, and how am I going to assess all of the work? But I suppose that's where you get grad assistants, teaching assistants to help with the actual grading under your supervision. All right, so what else do we have? Extracurricular. The athletic events. Y'all, this is going to be, I do not even know. It's July. Many teams have already been on campus practicing, and I think we have all heard, if you haven't, you're not listening, the number of outbreaks on football teams. For me, I'm like, fine, let them get it over with, and we're done. You didn't hear this from me. I'm publishing this on a public podcast. But you guys, what if the idea all along for our athletics was, let's go ahead and get everybody tested. Let's get a positive test result. Let's get past it now. And then by the time we get to playing, it's a non-issue because everybody's already had COVID. And so no one's no longer at risk because they've already had it. Now, there's still some debate about people can get reinfected. I don't know. I've not looked at that science, but I'm just suggesting, what if? I know at nursing homes, they don't take new patients until the entire nursing home has been COVID-free for, I think, 2 weeks. And does that mean that everyone in that nursing home, staff and residents, have already had it? Is that herd immunity? I don't know. Just curious. What do you think? I would expect homecoming and parent and family weekend. I'm going to expect these things to be dramatically different or non-existent this year. Is it worth the investment in an already potentially financially strapped institution to put on a very costly event where you may not have attendance, or the additional expense to manage the social distancing and the cleaning and education? Is it worth it? We'll see. Have you guys already heard? Is your institution not having family weekend? Are they not having homecoming? I'm really interested. I'm going to check into that. There will be policies for students about parties and what the expectation is from a student conduct perspective. I'm going to be paying attention to the news and how many students are suspended or expelled or reprimanded because of parties. I do not expect any study abroad experiences to be offered this fall. Still hold my breath for spring, but fall 2020, I do not expect any study abroad experiences. Clubs and organizations. This season is really going to test the veracity of clubs and organizations with students, their ability to adhere to university expectations for gatherings, and their ability to be creative, to still create engagement and fulfilling their mission as an organization or a club in the fall. So that'll be another interesting experiment to follow for this academic year. And then lastly, I want to cover health. I've talked in the past about what you should do, what you and your student should do if you're sending your student with a chronic health condition to campus, whether it is a physical health condition or an emotional health condition. Both, you need to have plans in place. And if you haven't already read that episode, you should read the episode. If you haven't already listened to that episode, please make a point to do that. I did a lot of homework on that to help you be really comfortable with your decision to send your student to campus with a chronic illness pre-COVID. But for this fall, certainly you're going to expect face masks. I believe many institutions plan to provide your student with 2 reusable face masks. But that's not going to be enough if your student is planning to be a healthy user of a face mask. So I would recommend, knowing what I know about students, you might want to get an economy bag of, let's say, 90 masks, one for every day, because their chances of washing, or just buy the disposable. Buy a big box of the disposable masks if you can find them. It'll be interesting because I would be surprised how many students wash their face masks. So there's that. Your students are probably going to be asked to do some daily health monitoring, whether it's through an app or whether it's in their residence halls upon entering and leaving. So it's going to be quick question about your symptoms and your temperature and your exposure. You and your student should expect some semi-routine testing. They should anticipate at some point to be asked to quarantine or isolate depending on their own symptoms or exposure to a positive test. So that's where we get into the to-go pack. They will be required to respond to any inquiries on contact tracing. That's going to be really important for universities to have their contact tracing robust. And then I would expect them to have a plan with you in the event there's a family member that becomes ill and they need to come home and help with care for that family member or a younger sibling, or if they become ill. So have the plan. I will link to this in my show notes. So if you go to my website, lisabeals.com, you will see, I'll send you a link. It's Inside Higher Ed did a really great, a contributing author wrote A Day in the Life of an Online Learner. So I think it's an interesting read, very short. So today we talked about how the campus is going to look different, how the students will look different, how housing will look different, classes will be different, extracurricular and health. Top 6. There we go. Covered it. And then I could not let this go by without another mention. Now is the time to teach your student how to manage their time. It is a skill that will serve them well forever. Serve them well. Okay, there you go, guys. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, you know what I'm going to say. Share this with a friend. Help them out. Help me out. I would also ask, because I've not done this before, is my podcast helpful? Do you like it? Is it meeting your needs? Give me a review. Do you mind? Reviews on your podcast app help tell your podcast app that this is something other people should hear. So give me a review and then let me know. I'd love to give you a shout out and make you somewhat internet famous. I don't know. You decide. So share this episode with your friends. If you don't already follow me, I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Not Your College Life with Lisa Beals. I would love to talk with you all. Until next week.